Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to a wonderful Wednesday webinar for the Climate Emergency Centre Network. We've got a real treat for you tonight. Fraser MacNaughtae, you might be able to help me pronounce it a bit better, but basically he's going to tell us about the eco-social assembly and the tri-axis model of decision making, which I think is a really interesting thing. All of our communities, all our projects need to look at how decisions are made and governance. And when he first was telling us about it, it reminded me the Native Americans say about every decision should be run through how it affects 7 generations ahead. So this is every decision, how it should be put through a few things. So Fraser, do tell us more. Thank you so much for coming over.
Yeah. Thanks very much for inviting me here, and thanks very much for everyone for turning up. So I'm Fraser MacNaughtae, and sort of probably the main founder or the founding member of the Eco-Social Assembly. And we're here to introduce everyone to the Traxxas model, which is an ethical governance for people and planet. Bring in a decision-making model that sort of cuts through noise, brings clarity, care, and accountability back to the center of public life. It can be used anywhere by anyone. There's no, unfortunately, I sort of did the slideshow quite quickly. There's no visuals. There's no amazing visuals to sort of spur you on. So this slide here is why we need a new model. Um, and really at the moment we're facing deep, urgent crisis, not just ecological, but social and moral. And while many people care deeply, there's a fragmentation that makes collective action difficult. The left, in particular, often splinters through internal conflict or through external coercion or co-option. Good campaigns get hijacked, promising leaders get pulled off course. What we lack seems to be not ideas, but a reliable process for making decisions and holding decisions that hold the shape under pressure. And that's where this is the Traxxas model in essence, really. So we've got society, ethics, and environment, which are the three axes, as we call them. So every decision gets put through three questions. Is it best for society? Is it best for the environment? And is it ethical? As in, does it follow an ethical framework? It only works if all three align, insisting on coherence rather than competition. It works instead of like a bilateral decision-making process like a lot of people use. It's this or that, black or white, right or left. And this is much more of a balanced decision-making model. So each axis asks a different question. First, we got we've got first society, which asks if something is good for society. We're not just asking if it's popular, but does it serve community as a whole, and does it preserve the vulnerable? In the environment axis, we ask whether the planet has been respected, not only in carbon terms, but in deeper ecological sense of regeneration and restraint. And the ethical axis is really the sort of heart. It's the balance that holds everything together, as I see it. It's about fairness, care, consent, and whether the group has made its ethical framework visible, shared, and active. No one person gets to skip an axis. No single person gets to decide what's right. And this is how the model is built: trust through a reliable process, not personality. All concerns are valid as well. We'll go into that in a minute. That's really quite important. Um,
That's a
so
nice one about taking on board all concerns, because there's valid reasons why people bring things up, and it can make a healthier decision when you take on.
yeah, exactly. It's a really important point, and I do put some emphasis. So looking at why the alignment matters, or how the alignment works. So it doesn't just say yes or no to projects, to ideas. It's a process for bringing misalignment into the open. So if a project fails one axis, it doesn't mean the project's scrapped. It just means let's bring the axis back to the table. What's wrong with it? Can we change how it's delivered? Who owns it, etc. Or even just how the question's framed. If two axes fail, perhaps the process needs rethinking altogether. Um, but sometimes two axes will fail, but it's an idea that people really still want to be taken on board. But it's, well, how are we framing the question? Who's owning this? And there's other questions that can be asked to bring everything to alignment. If it's what people really want, then alignment can be found. So what happens? Sorry, what matters is not perfection. It's coherence. So it it may mean changing how a project's delivered. It may mean revisiting ownership or production methods. It may mean loosening our own rigid demands to find better alignment. So obviously, if all axes align, if everything's a yes, we can move forward quite easily. But if anything doesn't align, we can go back to the table and rethink it. It's not a no. It's not a black and white question. It's how do we make these things align? Um, so how does the adopting the model in practice? A lot of people ask, who decides what's best? Um, well, you do. The group does. As the group grows and more voices join, then what people see as best for society or best for the planet will evolve. That's not a flaw. It's just part of the process. We can only give the answers as we know and as the knowledge we've got. All we can do is make sure we're following what's best for the planet, for the society, and what's ethical. If we keep following these principles, we'll always the right answers. So the triaxis model itself doesn't change, but the size of the group, um, changes, and therefore the more voices more knowledge makes up the answer, the decision making. And that's why I said it can be used anywhere by anyone. So it can be used by really small groups with the knowledge and the experience they've got, or it can be taken into sort of massive nationwide groups and used the decision, the knowledge that we've all got together. So for ethics, we've rooted the model in the BACP framework, and that's the British Association of Counselling and Psychotherapy. I've not put a link in here, but it's quite easy to find. It's a really, really good ethical framework, and all you could do is type in to your search engine BACP ethical framework. It's just beautifully written. Obviously, it's written for the sort of counselling, because for one to one, and it does need rewritten to manage larger groups. So we've published a draft ethical framework, and we invite aligned groups to explore, adapt, adopt, and engage with it. This can grow. Um, we encourage groups to add depth where needed, based on local realities and lived experience, and to feed those developments back into the wider process. It's not just how we build. This is how we build not just shared decisions, but shared language and an ethical bridge between present and future. Ethics must never be assumed; they must be shared, transparent. Um, what slide are we on now then? 7, I think. Is that right? Yeah. Um, so here, every concern is valid. And so it goes into our ethical framework, because our ethical framework talks about a number of things. So it's non-maleficent, it's beneficent, it it becomes our duty, not just a duty, it becomes a principle of the ethical framework to stand up against wrongdoing. In the counselling ethical framework, it talks about malpractice. But here we say that every concern is valid, every voice in the room is valid. No one person decides, and decisions emerge through a shared process. Um, but every decision, so every concern doesn't necessarily mean a veto. It means that that concern has to be put through the ethical, the framework and the triaxis model. Um, and once a voice, a concern has been put through the model, it can't constantly come back and put through the model, because I don't know if you all. I've certainly been in meetings and in groups where the largest voice or the biggest ego will come back almost with the same thing, just resaid a different way, and disrupt the meeting. So what this does is it allows everything to be heard um, and but it doesn't allow it to be blocked progress forever. So this is how the model resets paralysis without shutting people down. No one decides. It's a model of authority. Oh, sorry, it's not a model of authority, but process. Um, so the specific answers to what's best society, what's ethical may differ in different communities, but the triaxis process remains the same. The demand of decisions pass through all axes remains the same. It holds both flexibility and integrity at once. It's not the answers that give this model strength, but the questions it refuses to ignore. Um, Here I'm bringing up a case study. Now, this case study I put in a slide as a little bit of a trigger warning. May feel a bit contentious. We're going to do a case study here on wind farm campaigners, campaigners against wind farms for a number of reasons. Now, obviously, I think a lot of people here would generally be saying, yes, why would wind farm fail at all? The wind farms, let's push them forward. But we believe this case study is a perfect example of why ethical and democratic methods are essential. Um, and the Triaxis model avoids things like greenwash, and avoids the ego, avoids corruption. So we've been working with local residents in Kintyre. Just started this case study a while ago, maybe a year or so ago. I was actually in a meeting in Kintyre as part of the consultation process, and I was really shocked at some of the stuff that was coming up that wasn't being taken into account. Um, Oops, where are we now? Slide. Oops, there we are. So some of the concerns raised are wildlife distribution, turbines. So there's been a decision made or a legal distance of turbines from home. They've kept the legal distance, but they've doubled the size of the turbines. There's massive battery fire risks with the battery you're using. They're using like containers and containers and containers of batteries. They've accepted that these are fire risks, but are not putting them into the risk assessments. I think here we've got a case study live, and since I wrote the slideshow, it's been added to by some of the locals, and they've given us some information. So, for example, we're looking at a case study we're looking at the moment is called Meal Moor or Meal Moor, and it's 14 turbines, 230 meters tall, um, near Campbelltown in Kintyre. Kintyre at the moment is covered in wind farms. But this one here is owned by E-Power Limited, which is linked to Invis and Cradle Group, backed by pension funds in Ireland, Japan, and UK. So they've been in the social access, the consultation process has been poor. Locals found there was no consultation process. Locals found out within minutes, obviously, of the thing being closed down. Developers are threatening or pressuring individuals. Um, the community impact tower is already saturated with the turbines. While Scotland's got in 2022, I think Scotland had 113% renewables, and there's new and better renewables being invented all the or being created and produced all the time. But there's this massive push, mainly by the developers, to put these wind farms across. The biodiversity risks, so the environmental access. There's massive biodiversity risks. There's risks of the battery storage. There's risk of degradation from the wind turbines themselves. There's wildlife that are being disrupted. Um, Here in this, there's these massive batteries which are a fire risk. This is right next to an oil terminal as well, which is obviously pretty has been pointed out as being quite dangerous. The ethical axis, there's lack of honesty in visual materials, there's lack of honesty both by the developers and by the government. It seems to be um, profit first, and the consent has not been legally sought. And the concerns of the locals, which are also health concerns as well, are being obviously passed, put across as NIMBY concerns. Which is obviously fine if they all prove to be NIMBY concerns, but in an ethical process, these concerns, every voice and every concern is valid. I think we're on. So we've really done that. you can see there, although it's quite interesting. A while ago I asked AI to put the wind farms through the triaxis model, and it was obviously yep, yep, yep. And I said, well, what about this and this and this? And it went, ooh, ooh. Now, just recently, as we joined this case study, in getting back to the campaigner that's contacted me, um, I put it through the model again to try and give them a base model from where to start from, thinking that obviously the AI would just go, yep, yep, green lights. And the AI came back going, no, no, this is not ethical. The ownership's not ethical. Where it is not ethical. So the AI, in a little bit of time of listening to the tri-axis model, was like, actually, that doesn't necessarily mean it gets given the full green light. Um, so uh,
That's a really good example, the wind farm one, because
I
there
thought
are
it was. I thought
big
it's a
diverse
yeah,
opinion.
yeah, yeah. I thought it's a really good example because it's one that's quite, I think, contentious in a lot of our fields, and a lot of people wouldn't be necessarily thinking how unethical or how bad for the environment it is. Because if the thing is, it's not a yes or no. It's not an oil industry or wind farm. It's not a, you know,
Mm. What's
um,
infrasound? That's one I spotted. I didn't understand.
infrasound and what's the other one? Intra or is it ultra? Ultrasound and infrasound. So you've got the base waves, sound waves, and you've got sound waves that go below and above the actual audible or human audible
Uh,
range.
uh,
And there's been massive health risks shown of this, and people have got actually quite ill. People have lost workers because workers can't get back to their farms. Autistic children have been really affected. Um, but so when that's brought up,
wow.
it's the industry has set up a research, or there's a research independent research saying no, 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 there's no health risks. But the independent research company is run by the people that the production of of the wind turbines themselves. So as you can see, it's not completely ethical. But moving on, it's obviously that's quite a big thing, and it's a campaign. But it doesn't mean that the model is just for campaigns. It gives us a way to think together through complexity, and can be used for anything. It can be used, on decisions of even your holiday. It can be used in a family group. It can be used in a community, a gardening group. It can be used in a citizens assembly, or as we're trying to do here, a campaign group. Really interested in this language being shared and used and starting to be put through the court cases. One court case is not going to win, but a few court cases later, we might start seeing some results. I think I've gone way off my notes here, but anyway, we are now. Um, so I first designed this model. I didn't really deliberately design this model, but I first designed this model as a sort of counter to top-down manipulative strategies like the OODA loop, which is a battle-ready, quick decision-making strategy that has been brought into peacetime politics. They used it in Brexit. They used it in a number of campaigns. It's been used regularly. You can see it being used. So OODA stands for, I think they changed it slightly because they're promoting it for business, but it stands for observation, orientate, disorientate, attack. So as you can imagine now, thinking back to the Brexit campaign, seeing how that was laid out. Um, but So it was designed as a quick decision-making model. For example, if we were to decide, should we call for a ceasefire? Is that good for society? Yes. Is that good for environment? Yes. Is that ethical? Yes. Let's call for a ceasefire. Um, should we develop this wind farm? Right now, this takes a bit more time. So it works just as powerfully when used with care, reflection, and with community. And it allows us to say that this is the best decision we can make right now with what we know, but we're open to change because we're open to learning. It gives us something that most movements don't have, which is like a flexible center where ethics, society, and ecology never fall out of balance. And perhaps most radically, and here's the word I don't like, it it gives us a future where true leadership is measured by care for society, the environment, and ethical integrity. I've put the tri-axis model through our future, and I don't think leadership is a word that we should be using in the future, but it's a word we're using now, so I've just kept it in there. Um,
Coordinators. We really like coordinators.
yes, yeah, facilitators.
Players, yeah.
So, and it's also structured enough to face algorithmic age without losing our humanity. And that, I think, brings us on to our next slide here. Um, so AI, some people love it, some people loathe it, but it is here and it is coming. The future isn't just political, it's al and with recent developments, we're seeing AI move beyond chatbots and automation. It's been used to shape policy, war, public opinion, and increasingly it's not answerable to public. In Israel, AI has already been deployed in military targeting. Um, and unlike many movements, which are actually too vague or too utopian, the Traxxas model is structured and specific enough to survive the digital future. When I always thought about it being a series of if statements. I used to say it was the algorithm, or trust the maths of the algorithm within the triaxis model. I see it as a number of if statements, which is a computer program almost. And it wasn't until later on I obviously realized how robust it would be when brought into AI governance because the oligarchs are sort of elbowing everyone out the way to sort of control the story of the future, and part of that story they are, putting forward as AI. And if we can get AI into the ethics and early evolution of AI, um, now it does safeguard um, environment, it does safeguard society, and it does safeguard ethics in the future. There's some really, really dangerous AIs being made and used, and we can't just run away from it. We've got to be prepared, and this model is robust enough to be used not just within political, within community groups, but also within massive political movements uh, and within an AI takeover. It's not that we're promoting an AI takeover, but we are robust enough to be ready for it. And if we don't embed these ethic limits now, we won't have a chance later. Um, let's move on because I know can't see the time right now. Uh,
Doing all right. 6:33. It's all good.
okay, brilliant. Well, that's about the right time then, isn't it? We've got two more slides. Okay. So how you can use it. Start where you are with what you've got, really. Um, use a model in your group, campaign, school, or community meeting. It's not a model that needs permission. It doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to the work, whether you're running a housing co-op, planning a campaign, mediating community dispute, or just trying to decide what to prioritize in yourself. The TRIACS model can be used. It just asks you to pause and check, and it will get easier to use. And as the language gets used and spread, it becomes a shared language for more and more groups, and it does make alignment with other groups much easier. If we start using similar languages, similar ethical boundaries, a lot of us do, but at the same time, we're still so splintered that it is. I think that having that as strength may be quite important in the future. Where so as you ask these questions, if the answer's unclear, that's brilliant, because that's where real conversation begins, and that's where real change is born. We're happy at the Eco-Social Assembly to support any group that wants to adopt the model. We are building tools and resources almost day by day. So whether that's running a workshop or helping you make decisions or just sharing tools and templates, we're there to help and get in touch. You don't have to wait for us though. Just start. Use what you've got. Um, and this model grows by use, not by branding. So let's use it. Uh, so it is, as I said, let's a quick recap. Really, that's the last slide. So we're not here to win arguments. We're here to protect what matters. We're here to not answer, give answers. We're here to ask the questions. Um, And we're offering a way to do that, which doesn't depend on charisma, hierarchy, or ideology, but on care. It gives us a structure that we can hold up, that holds up even under pressure and even when things get messy. And as I said, is robust enough to deal with AI and being an algorithm, it gets learned quite quickly. It's not perfect. It doesn't pretend to be. It evolves and it strives for what is best for society, what is best for the environment, and what is ethical. And it gives us a solid place to begin. And maybe this is just the type of story that we've been waiting for. Not a myth or a slogan, but a way to live and act together with clarity, courage, and balance.
Just to burb a little bit, I've seen 35 years of community centres and, ways of making decisions and, the journey from, growing up and doing politics A level and being told about voting and then reading things in Starhawk's book, I think about consensus and talking circles and facilitators and coordinators, which inspired me to do some of the early Rainbow Centre stuff. And then seeing things like the Occupy movement coming, where they were aiming to work on consensus, but that's very difficult in large groups. I think a bit post Occupy, they were talking about consensus plus one or two or something, that one or two people could not be part of the consensus if they didn't want to. There was blocks and there was stand asides and other things. But how we make decisions is fundamental to how we organize our society. And whether it's a top-down system or a circular system, and how we share. And now we're in this, as Fraser covered a bit in the thing, that, the digital age. And unless we get in there and put some ethical frameworks on how our communities and our projects and decisions make decisions, then, there is the billionaires, media press shaping the landscape. I like
about AI. I've been using it for 2 years now in the work that I do. I take it started by taking the opening comments by Jim Garrison, the president of Ubiquity University. And at the beginning of Humanity Rising, he would wax eloquent, and we were very taken with his words. And we talked back then, that was in 2020, about we should make these his comments available to more people other than it being lost inside an hour and a half video, so that more people could hear his words. So in 23, it was a good idea to start a blog. And so I started using AI to help me transcribe the transcripts into recognizable language, because Zoom transcripts are awful. And so I did the work for a while, and then we started talking about AI in Humanity Rising, and we had guests talking about it. So I decided I'd try it. And what I learned about yes, it's a tool, but it can also be a friend. And friends are sometimes really wrong. And yet, what it gives us is an opportunity to think for ourselves. And this is where I think a lot of people might get kind of lost. They think the AI knows. No, you know. You have the ability to ask inside your heart what is right, and ask it to think more deeply about, well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Well, what about the environment? What about the community? And what about the ethics behind that? The tri-axis model that you bring forward to us, Fraser, is essential in looking at the problems and the solutions that we are all seeking. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I really appreciate it. I want to
thank you very much for coming so much and explaining this, and let's all get behind it. And this is what we need. It needs to be put into physical decision making. Let's get together physically in rooms more, and into the AI and the online and the whatever. There's a digital world now in a lot of ways, but let's get out of the matrix and meet each other in real climate emergency centres and parks and shared decision making. Over to you, Fraser, for final comments. Thank you so much for coming.
brilliant. Thanks very much for having us. Lovely to share and explain better, because as I said, it is slightly out of the box, and sometimes people don't quite grasp it straight away. We've got tools that are growing and building. Obviously, as Phoenix said, we do appreciate or would appreciate some more help with design and stuff. I used to be a designer, but I'm too busy at the moment doing words and doing all this pushing out. So we really could do with some help. But other than that, just spread the word and use the model where you are and come back to us and talk to us and feedback. And yeah, on the go, network, share, and spread. Lovely.
Brilliant.
Very much.